The Connecticut Music Oral History Podcast is a deep dive interview series with musicians, artists, conduits, collectors, and dedicated fans, focusing on 20th century Connecticut music history. This project preserves narratives, heralds unsung movers and shakers, and defines Connecticut's influential role in cultural history. I'm your host, Brendan Toller. I'm an artist, a musician, a filmmaker, and marketing manager of the incredible Verso Studios at the Westport Library, where this very podcast is being produced. Verso Studios is a media resource and production hub, serving as an inclusive, empowered, future-forward cultural and learning center. A library branch of the 21st century, Verso Studios provides programming, commercial services, as well as educational and content creation opportunities. We have a state-of-the-art hybrid analog recording studio designed in part by Rob Fraboni, the same guy who built Keith Richards' home studio down the road. We record bands, artists, audiobooks, podcasts, and everything in between. We have video production suites, classes, and events. Check us out at the Verso Studios website and on social media. Welcome to another installment of the Connecticut Music Oral History Podcast. This episode features Westport's own Barbara Reis, a musician, composer, and music therapist whose travels took her to Julliard, High School of Music and Arts, University of Michigan, Tanglewood, the Brill Building, and Westport Country Playhouse and Theater Committee. Barbara's story is truly inspirational and vital to anyone who considers himself an artist. Here's Barbara introducing a track.
This is Music's Magic that Wanda Houston sang. And because, I don't know, music is largely my life and my love, here's Music's Magic.
Music's magic takes you to a plane no one can explain, to a realm of light-filled wonder. Music's magic touches the extreme. Optimistic dreams appear. Music's magic touches chords inside, makes a stream run wide, sounding notes that take you higher. Music's magic reaches deep inside, shines a light on what we hide. It can reveal all that we feel when you are lost or in some place divine. Music's magic comes in simple tunes, heard by glowing moons, sung with smiles and laughter. Open wide your heart and let music's magic start.
I'm here today with Barbara Reis, local musician and native Westporter. Welcome, Barbara.
Thank you.
And Barbara, we'll start off here. What was your first musical memory?
My first musical memory was going to the St. James Theater with my parents. It was my mother's birthday, and we were going to see Oklahoma. And we sat in the first row of the orchestra, and I was overwhelmed seeing a musical. It was the first musical I had ever seen, and just sitting next to the orchestra was mind-boggling. And it was very moving. It was very moving, and it kind of, part of it is a love story. And to see a woman and a man very much in love in a musical, in anything, just anywhere, is, to me, just touches my heart. And that touched my heart. It touched my heart so much that when I was, 10, 11, 9, whatever I was at the time, I knew that's what I wanted to do with my life. I wanted to write love stories. I wanted to do music, make music about people that cared about one another. And that to me was, anyway, riveting, and it changed my entire life.
But you had a natural aptitude towards the piano, right?
Well, yeah,
Nursery
but I
school.
hadn't played the piano all that much. I hadn't taken lessons at all. And, but when I got home, I played the songs on the piano. And my parents were thunderstruck, that I could do that.
These are songs you heard in nursery school or something like that? Or?
No, these were the songs from Oklahoma. And anyway, my father, being who he was, the generous-spirited lover of music that he was, said, my gosh, I'm going to have to find out who's teaching Irving Berlin's daughter, because nobody was good enough for Barbara, of course, according to my father. So there he is the next day. He didn't know Irving Berlin, but he had come from Odessa, and Irving Berlin was Russian born. And so anyway, he called Irving Berlin and found out that Mary Ellen was studying with Siegfried Lichtenstein. And then he kind of thought about it, and he said, well, I better check on somebody classical. And whereupon he called Vladimir Horowitz, who was the eminent pianist at that time, and found out that Tamara, I think is Vladimir Horowitz's daughter's name, was studying also with Siegfried Lichtenstein. So shortly thereafter, he called Siegfried Lichtenstein, and I had an audition, and that was one of the most beautiful periods of my life.
But was Irving Berlin in the phone book? How How did your dad get in touch with him?
No, my father came over from Odessa on a ship by himself because they were killing Jews and in Odessa at that time. And he became a lawyer. He became a assistant attorney general of New York State. And there was no door that was closed to my father. My father loved everyone, whether they cleaned the floor or whether, they were an impresario. And he found out and he caught Irving Brill. He's a landsman, right?
Now, it was magical, I'm guessing, because, number one, and I kind of know this, you liked your instructor, but also it's just the magic of the beginnings of music, right?
Yeah, well, it was the beginning of working with the kindest man imaginable. Kind and nurturing and it was a beautiful experience. It really was. And Siegfried Lichtenstein was just a very loving, caring human being.
What do you think he instilled in you?
I hope he instilled in me being kind, opening oneself up to everyone. I hope that I carry that with me.
Because, to contrast, that was not the experience you had at Julliard, right?
Right.
Which was next. So walk us through that.
Well, unfortunately, my father was a little upset that Siegfried Lichtenstein thought I was too young to study theory. But, nothing was too good for his Barbara. And so I had an audition for Julliard and got in. Siegfried Lichtenstein prepared me with solfeggiato for an audition at Julliard, and I was assigned to Frances Goldstein. And her demeanor was very different, even though today I still have a birthday book that she gave me as a gift, a birthday book so I can notate the birthdays of friends, of whomever I wish. And I still use it. And it's inscribed at the beginning, to Barbara from Frances Goldstein. Not with love or affectionately, but I think of her kindly. And she also gave me a book on classical musicians, on childhood of Mozart and Chopin, etc., etc. And I still have those two. I cherish them, even though my experience with her was not the best. And anyway, I'll never forget. I must have been kind of in my early teens, and I was wearing a skirt that belonged to my mother because I thought I was looking jazzy at the time. And she looked at me and she said, "Where did you get that outfit?" And I said, "Oh, this is my mother's skirt," and I was so proud to wear it. And she kind of scoffed.
Talk about playing the Bach English Suite.
Oh, my goodness. Well, there were recitals in the auditorium, and I wasn't used to playing in auditoriums. And anyway, I had really worked hard on that Bach English Suite. And I believed, I knew it. I had to play it by memory. But I sat down and I started it, and it went quite well. And then I came to a portion that I was a little unsure of. And one of my talents is improvisation. In fact, I'd say that's my greatest talent, because I'm not a marvelous classical pianist. But anyway, instead of playing the Bach, I improvised that section. And anyway, after a few seconds, Francis Goldstein said, "I want to hear Bach, not Barbara Backler."
So, once again, she was extremely critical.
Yes, and after that, I was fortunate that I had applied to the High School of Music and Art and was accepted, and so it was thought advisable that I not continue at Julliard. And anyway, I had theory and composition and conducting at Music and Art, but I made a big mistake. They assigned me another mistake, Barbara.
Life is full of mistakes. It's okay.
But you're supposed to learn from your mistakes. Somehow, Barbara, well, now at this stage of the game, maybe I'm learning a little. But anyway, they gave me a double bass. They assigned the instrument. They gave me a double bass. Well, to lug from 136th Street and Convent Avenue to 88th Street in West End, a double bass to practice on, at least 3 times a week.
It's also a very physical instrument. Wouldn't you say? I mean, to really play it, it's different from the piano.
Well, anyway, so I said, "Oh, I don't know if I can take this home with me. It's very big, and I had to walk down the hill into the subway, So they said, "Okay, you can let's hear you sing." So I sang, and they said, "Oh, you can be in the chorus." So there I was in the chorus, and that was a big mistake. I had an opportunity to learn the bass, which is the basics, the basis of music is the bass. Anyway, so I sang. I sang with Diane Carroll, and other people that went on to have successful careers. But it was good. It was good. I loved that aspect, being in the chorus. Somehow being in a chorus gives one a feeling of togetherness, of being with all people in the world. It's like it's a different experience. When I'm in a chorus, I feel a kinship with everyone. And I've had a lot of choral experiences since then.
I mean, it's probably naturally because the voices blend together, but you don't get that same kind of camaraderie being in the pit or with a, quartet or something like that, or even a duo.
Right. It's togetherness.
Yeah. So the fire of music is still very much in your heart, and you attend University of Michigan.
Oh, that's the best university in the whole United States. The bestest. And I'm just sorry that I didn't stay in Ann Arbor. What a great place. What a great place. Anyway, and there I had an opportunity to write musicals with other passionate people about the theater and take theater courses and music literature courses, and met people from the Midwest who are real people. Real. They're very real. I loved Michigan. Ann Arbor was...
It's a beautiful city. One of my favorites.
Oh.
Yeah. And then, but you would summer doing very interesting things. You were at the WNYC Music Library, the Berkshire Music Center, Tanglewood. So talk about those experiences a little bit as you're, in your college years. Yeah.
My college years?
Well, I'm talking specifically about the
my
experiences
age.
No. I mean, just your experiences at Tanglewood and
at Tanglewood. At Tanglewood, there were enormously gifted people, and I was very young. I was about 16 years old, and people such as Lauren Maisel and Lenny Bernstein and Charles Munch and all these wonderful people, not wonderful, these talented, extremely talented musicians were there. And also Hugh Ross, I can't leave him out. He was the choral conductor that I sang the Magnificat with, which is one of my favorite works. And I had a friend there, Mimi Sandbank. She was a composition student, and I needed somebody to kind of fix my hair or something. And she said, "Oh, Barb, I'll fix your hair. I'll cut your hair." And I said, "Oh, how wonderful." So that was one experience, that I had Mimi cut my hair, and then she listened to some of my compositions. And at the time, she was dating Lauren Maisel, who later became a conductor of the New York Philharmonic. And she said, "Just keep with it. Keep with it." She was encouraging me, and she was very maternal. And that was a wonderful summer. And it was also very special being with Lenny and singing under him, and his energy and his enthusiasm and his perspicacity, and just it was like no other experience to be with people who loved music. And little did I realize that, I was in an environment where there were extraordinarily talented people. And what did I want? I wanted to write musicals so that the music that I wrote was dramatically different than the music that these other people were composing.
And after Ann Arbor, you went back to New York because you felt you had to be there in what you thought was the hub, and you go to the Brill Building. What was happening in the Brill Building then?
Well, in the Brill Building were publishers and also fledgling musicians and well-known musicians who were composing music in studios. And anyway, I knocked on doors, and finally, after getting very cool reception or getting no reception at all, I went to Irving Berlin's studio, which was across the street, and I knocked on the door, and a very personable man wanted to know what I wished, and I said, well, I want to write, songs. I'm writing songs. Not I want to write. I was writing songs. I had already written a lot of songs. And anyway, he was warm and gentle, but the long shot was he didn't listen to my music. He just looked at me, and I guess I was a pretty young miss, and he said, oh, just like go find yourself a nice guy and get married and forget about this music business. Anyway, that was Helmy Kresser who wrote That's My Desire. And at the end, he said, and invite me to your wedding.
And you took his advice, though?
Did I take his advice? Are you kidding? Take his advice?
Well, I wouldn't have.
Nobody was going to tell me what to do. I knew what I wanted to do with my life, even though, my parents had other ideas. And, so did a lot of people in the Brill Building. But I knew what I wanted.
And you meet A. Chandler Warren.
Yes, I met Chan. Oh, he is wonderful. I'll have to call him tonight. He's in California, and he must be close to 100 now. Anyway, he was studying at the Columbia Law School, and he became a theatrical lawyer. And I had written some songs for the Law Review, the Columbia Law Review. And so I spoke with him, and he said, oh, I have an idea for a musical. This was when I was back in New York City, and I was living in my parents' apartment. Yeah, that was a difficult transition, going from having my freedom and going back home. I mean, going to New York wasn't the smartest thing. I should have stayed in Ann Arbor, but anyway, I did. And so my parents, expected me to get a job. But Chan came over to my parents' house one morning, and he said, well, let's work on Razzle Dazzle. I have this idea for The Elves and the Shoemaker. And I started writing music, and he wrote lyrics, and it was the best. It was the best. It was the best. I think we had maybe 2 meetings until my parents asked me, well, you graduated from college. I expect you now to get a job. And I said, I do have a job. I'm writing a musical with Chan. And they said, they didn't have any, even though they were very cultured and went to the Metropolitan and they had a Philharmonic subscription. And my father was in a chorus and he loved music. He just adored music. They didn't understand the life of an artist at all. So, anyway, we finished the musical. But I went to ABC. I walked to ABC from 88th Street and put an application in. And at first I was in music clearance, which had just notating what songs were being played on the radio or on television.
It's one of the most anti-music places you could be, kind of. Speaking from my own experience, yeah, music clearance it's dry paperwork.
It's dry paper, exactly. Music clearance. I had to notate what song and how many minutes it was. Yeah, this was after being at Michigan. It was the pits. Anyway, I met a nice person at ABC in the writing department. He said, I think that there's going to be an opening. There's going to be an opening with Milton Cross. I'll see to it that you have an interview. So I had an interview with Milton Cross.
Who was Milton Cross?
Oh, well, Milton Cross was a luminary. He did the synopsis of the operas on Saturday from the Metropolitan Opera. And he was well known, by musicians. And anyway, I was a little scared to meet him, but I went and met him, and finally, after I told him that I had studied theory and music literature, he hired me. Yeah, and he took me up to his office, and he gave me a big pile of papers. And he said, I want you to go through these papers. These are people who have auditioned for Met auditions of the air. And I like to have a program where some of these people sing. And so I thought, well, I'd hear these people, I'd hear some of them sing. Oh, no. It was all paperwork. I had to look and see what their background was. And then I put the yays in one pile and the nays in another pile. And it had nothing to do with music. It just had to do with seeing who had the most influential background, and those were the people that were selected for auditions. And it was a disheartening job. I was very unhappy, and the only good thing was that I had a piano in my bedroom, and I could write songs. But anyway, I quit. And my parents were very upset. And it was difficult living at home also.
But you do eventually land a job at a school. And my question is, because you were able to do a lot of writing, it seems, while you had that job at the Larchmont school system.
Yeah.
And my question is a lot of composers of that era and from before, that's what they had to do. They had to have like a bank job or an insurance job and then do that work. I mean, I'm pretty sure somebody like Charles Ives had that, right?
Yes, indeed.
So my question, I guess, did you figure that out on your own, or did you have sort of mentors and examples of like, okay, here's how I'm going to make my work happen? Yeah.
No, my mother was a guidance counselor, and she guided me. She picked out my dresses. She guided me. She was at Central Commercial High School, and she was getting jobs for these vocational students at the UN and at J.P. Stevens, etc. And, you know, I was to follow in her footsteps. I was to be a music teacher. That's what she envisioned.
You still didn't envision that, though, right? No.
Well, I tried it, but I had a funny experience. Before I was in Larchmont, Mamaroneck, I had a job at Russell Sage Junior High School, and it was in Forest Hills, and my parents had a car, and so instead of taking the train, my parents generously let me use their car. Well, the principal lived 2 blocks away, and so I drove him. And while I was driving him, his wife knew something about music, and she was telling him how I should teach the 90 fellows in the chorus, how I should teach music. It was the most painful, ghastly job. I mean, after that, I did get this job in Larchmont, Mamaroneck that was a little bit more creative and had a wonderful Dorothy Schutz was a new principal, and she had come from Colorado, and she kind of instructed me in what to do and how to do it. And I had Ronnie, who loved to sing, and I used to get together with him. He was a 7th grader, and I'd play the piano and he'd sing. And then I did the auditorium programs, and the juniors would sing the bottom part, and the seniors would sing the soprano part. And anyway, it wasn't... I didn't have much of a chance to have my music heard because I was just busy, teaching music, which was painful. It was painful.
But it's always, I mean, what I'm getting from this is that there's peaks and valleys. You know, you meet J. Peter Bergman after this.
Oh, that was the best. The best. Yes, I put an ad in the Village Voice, and Peter Bergman answered it, and he was working at Lincoln Center in the music library, and he knew the theater music. He knew Richard Rodgers. He knew Kurt Weill's music. He knew Sigmund Rommenberg. He knew the musical theater. And unbelievably, Peter really thought I had a lot of talent. And we wrote... Anyway, we went to his agent. First we wrote a lot of songs together. It was just so wonderful. It was so wonderful being with Peter and being in the world that he loved also. And So we went to his agent, Helen Harvey, and played some of the music. And she said, "Oh, I have a wonderful project for you. Anita Luce has a book, has a play called Happy Birthday. Why don't you and Peter write the music for it?" And I still have those printed lead sheets that I had to pay a bloody fortune for Happy Birthday. And so we showed that to Helen, and she was excited because she really liked some of our songs. And she said, "Oh, I'm going to call Anita Luce." And she got Anita Luce on the phone and told her about us. And apparently Anita Luce had signed up with Judy Holliday and Jerry Mulligan, Happy Birthday, had given them the rights to Happy Birthday. So anyway, there went Happy Birthday. But the collaboration was so wonderful, was just, it was what I dreamed of. And I still see Peter. He's a music critic in the Berkshires, and we still have, in fact, he gave me a book he had written that he'd like made into a musical, but it's a very down musical about a schizophrenic, and it somehow, I just, though I want to work with Peter, I'd like to work with Peter, somehow that project isn't something that appeals to me.
But you tried to run a song to Clive Davis.
Oh, well, when I was at Michigan, there were my three best friends, and Helen Cohn transferred to Boston University so that she could be near Clive. And she was dating Clive, and Clive was a poor boy. He had a scholarship, and he and Helen used to go to New York, and they used to leave everything at my parents' house. And I mean, Clive was a buddy, you know. I mean, anyway, I went to his kids' graduation, not to his graduation, I even went to their weddings. That's how close I was to Clive. Anyway, so I sent, Peter and I wrote something for Up the Sandbox, and that was a work that Barbara Streisand was going to be in. So anyway, you know, I thought, of all people, and he had just, about that time, he had just gone from Columbia Records to Arista. And anyway, he spent the summer at Woodstock, and he got a bee in his bonnet that the people at Woodstock were going to incorporate the music world of the future. Now, did Clive, was he musically trained? No, Clive was a businessman. He was a lawyer. That's what he was. Though he did have some training when he was with Columbia Records. Anyway, so Peter and I wrote a wonderful song called Back Then for Up the Sandbox. And I still think it's one of my best songs. Springtime, summer straight ahead, but I'm looking back instead. Anyway, I'm not a singer, but you can't tell from my singing, but it's a beautiful song. And we had it recorded in a studio. And anyway, to make a long story short, Clive wasn't interested in the kind of music, in the ballads. He was interested in what was happening in the scene in Woodstock. And that music was not the kind of music that I was writing. And so was that song ever in the musical? No. That was a keen disappointment. That was a big disappointment, Clive. Yeah. I thought you'd stand by my side. Even Helen didn't stay by his side. She left him. She left him and left the children and said that he better treat her and the children right, or else she'd decapitate him.
Oh boy.
Yeah, Clive Davis. Yeah.
But then upon moving to Westport, you meet John Williams.
Yes.
But before we get into John, when do you move here? What?
Oh, yeah. Moved here in 1971.
Great.
In 1971, yeah, my father had just passed away, and my husband moved his office to Greenwich, and they were in private schools, and here was an opportunity for a public school, Coleytown Elementary, right down the block. So, anyway.
John Williams.
Oh, John Williams. So I went to Adrian's cleaning store, and I was friendly with Adrian. Swiss Cleaners, it was called. And there was a man there, and we started speaking about the Westport Country Playhouse, etc. And I let him know that I was writing musicals. And he said, I have the best idea for a musical. And he told me that he didn't tell me right then and there, because I met him afterward, that Victoria Woodhull was the first woman who ran for the presidency on the Equal Rights Party for the presidency of the United States with Frederick Douglass. Who could ask for a better idea for a musical? And so I had to get a lawyer so that John Williams would get that it was his idea, all kinds of copyright things. I mean, I was spending a good deal of money just to get all the accoutrements so that I could write this musical. And then I went to Darien. There was a woman who had written a book about Victoria Woodhull, etc. Anyway, the community theater of Westport was very active, and I knew Jane Harmon, who was a theater bigwig there, and I told her about this idea, and she said, "Oh, I have the perfect person for you, Eileen Wilson. She's a director, she's an actress, she's schooled in England." And I met Eileen. What a lovely human being. And I had written a few, and as soon as I heard this idea, I was writing songs. And she was receptive to my music. And anyway, we finished it. We wrote our Victoria. It was, and at that time there was the White Barn, and Lucille Lortel allowed us to have a performance. Lucy, who had the Theatre Jalise in Manhattan, where a Kurt Weill work was playing, and anyway, we invited bigwigs and hoped that somebody would be receptive.
So eventually you become a member of the Westport Theater Committee. And Marcella.
Yes. I was very flattered that I was asked to be a member of the Westport Theater Committee because...
Can I stop you for a second? Could you just set the context of Westport, during this period? It's kind of an arts colony, right? And there's a lot of theater people here. So tell us about that.
Yes, there was some of the names I won't remember, but in the theater committee, there was Brenda Lewis, who had done Salome at the Metropolitan Opera. There was Marcella and her husband, who were the U.S. theater representatives in Europe and brought theater projects to Europe and, I guess, Asia as well, all over the world. She was very well known in the theater. There was, initially Betty Corwin, who was responsible for taping all the theater works, having them taped. And there's a library at Lincoln Center with all the theater productions in New York, thanks to Betty Corwin. There was somebody by the name of Elliot, who had been in Oklahoma, a dancer in Oklahoma with his wife, who was now a producer. So there were a lot of well-known people. I was the kid on the block that nobody knew. And anyway, so Marcella was going to do a work by a well-known writer in town hall, and they needed somebody to play the piano and play Love and Marriage and maybe write a new tune or two. And Marcella was very strong-willed, and I ordinarily am not that verbal. I just might stand there and listen to other people. And so, but she wanted me to announce the production. And anyway, she coached me on how to talk in the town hall. And that was because I was a member of the theater committee, I was asked to do that. The other people were too influential or too busy with their own projects. Betty Corwin, who's a well-known actress and director. These other people on the theater committee had assignments or engagements out of town. I was the only one...
You had to do the dirty work, huh? Yeah.
that they could capture. The other people were too well known to make an appearance at town hall. There'd be lines there to get their autographs. But nobody knew who Barbara Reis was. So I was the one. And so I played one or two of my compositions, and then whatever was needed. I've forgotten the name of the production, Wedlocked, and I've forgotten the name of the writer, but she at the time was a well-known author of theater works. So that was an experience, learning how to present something before a large audience in town hall. It was a learning experience, not a musical experience so much as an elocution experience.
Lehman Angle.
Oh, well, I heard about the Broadcast Music Incorporated. That Broadcast Music Incorporated was having a workshop for writers and for lyricists and for musicians. And naturally, I was excited, and I auditioned, and I was thrilled to be accepted in that workshop. And I had a wonderful collaborator, another Peter Knopf at the time, and Edward Walland, who had written The Pawnbroker, also wrote a book called The Tenants of Moonbloom about the cousin of a real estate developer who was kind of lost. And so this real estate owner decided that this cousin could go around and collect the rent from these various tenants. And so Peter and I wrote songs. We did a synopsis of the story, and we wrote songs. And unfortunately, Lehman wasn't receptive. He didn't feel it would be a commercial success. But one of the most poignant songs and moments in this is when this young man, who's emotionally immature, he goes from house to house collecting the rent, and as a result, he grows up. He becomes more sophisticated. He learns he's not so introverted. And there's a scene that we wrote where he goes to somebody's house to collect the rent, and he gets to know the people well. And there's a beautiful song that we wrote about the important thing. The important thing is not doing a prestigious job, but it's just getting to know who these people are, getting acquainted with them, and finding out who they really are. And Peter and I wrote a beautiful song about that.
Maxwell Anderson.
Oh, the Sacco Vanzetti trial. Yes, I want to impress you at this time that one of the most important things that I did during my career was finding either plays or books or projects that had meaning. For instance, the story I did, The Admirable Crichton by James Barrie, and it's a story of aristocrats in England, rich people, and they go on a boat. Lena Wertmuller, I think, wrote Swept Away Best on a movie, Swept Away Best on that. Anyway, they get to this island. Anyway, they're marooned, and they're helpless. They have no food. They don't know what to do. It's the servants who could build them huts. It's the servants who really come to their aid and assistance. It's the servants who find food for them to eat. And all the projects that I worked on had something important to say. They were just not willy-nilly musicals. They had strong characters, and the Sacco-Vanzetti case, which Maxwell Anderson wrote about and did a play about, I thought would be a wonderful musical, because it's really about a case that isn't fairly treated, that isn't fairly handled by the courts. And so I took it upon myself to write the music for that. I didn't have a lyricist. Well, then a lyricist from the Theater Artists Workshop did some of the lyrics for me, but I didn't have the rights to it. And so I invited Mrs. Anderson. Maxwell Anderson was deceased, and she came, and we presented a few songs for her. And anyway, the long shot was that, she was going to consult Stephen Sondheim, or she was going to see if anyone else was interested in doing this work. And as is in the theater, I never heard from her after that presentation. And then I discovered that she was deceased. And but anyway, I'm very proud that though, I'm an unknown, and that many of my works were not presented, that whatever I attempted to do was worthwhile. It had a message. The characters had substance. And I feel that's what's lacking in the theater today, that the works really have no message, and when people leave, they don't carry anything with them. Now, that's a generalization. Maybe some of them do, but I know that in the musicals that I've written, that there's an important message, and that people would grow by going to my musicals. While I was writing musicals and I was in the theater artists workshop, I had some spare time, and I decided that I would volunteer at a nursing home or a place for seniors. And I went to Metaplex, which is no longer here in Westport, but it was a senior living facility, and I spoke to the recreation director, and I asked if I could play the piano or I could do anything musically. And Charlotte Laputra was the recreation director, and she said she thought that a chorus would be well received. And she got together a few people, and on Mondays I would go there and we would sing patriotic songs or songs from films, songs that they knew. And on Monday when I would go there, I remember that there was a few people, they would be waiting for me, and they would just be sitting in the seats. I can see them so clearly, even today. And after the chorus, I'd often just spend time with them individually or go to their rooms. And I'd get to know who they were and what their lives were like, and I enjoyed asking them questions about their background, etc. And Charlotte, God bless her, she used to call me the music therapist. Now, I wasn't a music therapist. I was a musician, somebody who happened to have a master's in music. Anyway, one day Charlotte said to me that financially they had to leave Westport and they moved to Tennessee. And after that, somehow I missed Charlotte, and I decided that she was calling me a music therapist. I wanted to find out what a music therapist was. And so NYU had a music therapy program. And I went to New York, and I sat in some of the music therapy programs. And I found out that one either had to be psychoanalyzed or go through psychoanalysis, or it wasn't psychoanalysis, had to go through psychotherapy themselves, and also had to improvise and had to be able to connect with other human beings. And I was very impressed with the program. And at that point in time, my musicals weren't going anywhere. And I was kind of disillusioned with the way the theater artists workshop was moving. And I applied, and I found out that the program for me would be 6 years. And for 6 years, I commuted to New York. And it was one of the most growth. I grew as a human being. I had psychotherapy. I improvised. I journaled. And then, of course, I had internships at senior residence. I decided to work with seniors, and I worked at the Jewish Home for the Elderly and also in New Haven at the Jewish Home and other facilities. And I was supervised by a marvelous woman, Benedicta Shibi. And those 6 years enabled me to mature, really to a large extent, and also to derive such pleasure from hearing the life stories of people that were in these senior facilities, many of whom had nobody to talk to or no relatives around. And I really am blessed that Charlotte called me the music therapist. I really wasn't a music therapist at that time, but I am a music therapist today, and I have been giving my time to residences where there are seniors. I was working recently at the residence in Westport, and I had a chorus there, and unfortunately COVID struck the place, and so I couldn't complete the Christmas program there. But I'd say that I've loved writing music, and I still am. In fact, I'm writing piano music today, or songs as well. But I'm blessed that I had an opportunity to be a music therapist. It enabled me to grow. It's enriched my life, and I've met wonderful people who are struggling in nursing homes and senior facilities, and who have had fascinating lives that nobody knows about, perhaps, except me.
Well, part of that Brill Building advice is true. The music business is not only difficult, as you mentioned before, it can be a little shallow. I think that this story is very inspirational because you were doing your own work amidst working jobs, having a relationship, raising a family, and not many people, you hear about people my age doing that now, kind of sacrificing their free hours to pursue their art, but I don't think many people did that in those days. I could be wrong, Barbara.
No, I think that there are still people out there. There are still people out there who, because it's the food they eat. It's their blood. If you have something to say, whether it's a poem or a piece of music, you have to express it. And so people, unfortunately, have jobs that probably aren't even related at all to what their passion is. But I hope that these people have time or make time to express what's in their heart today.
I want to give listeners a visual. When Barbara is having a great memory or conjuring up sounds or images, her eyes close, and I don't think I've seen a smile that wide. I mean, you are transported when you're taken to a good place in these memories.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Advice for artists or musicians coming up.
Well, if you have that seed in you, pursue it as best you can. I have a daughter who's an eminent writer and poet, and she writes. She expresses herself, and if you have it, don't give it up, even though you may be typing away or on a computer during the day. Find some time to do what's inside you. And initially I wanted to prove to my parents that I could get a Tony Award. You know, that was or get an award of some kind. That isn't the important thing. It isn't it isn't the recognition. It's who you are. And if you're an artist, that's who you are. And carry that with you to the end of your life. The person who's been by my side, who's believed in me, who's a poet and the most brilliant lyricist. And she got the humanitarian award when she graduated from college to make the greatest contribution to society. And she does every day.
And who is this person? What's her name?
Her name is Rosalind May Reis. Anyway, and she just coincidentally happens to be, was put in my lap. Just anyway. And so I am privileged to have a daughter who possesses an artist's sensibility and in addition evinces a keen interest in my music. Whether I'm improvising or composing, she takes it upon herself to record whatever I am playing. Often, when I compose a work with a memorable melody, she surprises me humming the melody continuously. She then proceeds to write a lyric. She has made possible the songs Music's Magic, How to Grow Love, Heaven on Earth, and The Currency of Love. I would like to share one of these songs with you.
Love is a word spoken and heard. It's an emotion for which we all yearn. Love has no bounds, wide as the sea. Feel love's immenseness, let your love flow free. Love is like a flower opening to the sun. Love is like a rainbow encircling everyone. Now ask, it will reveal. Know that it is clear. All I know is love is why we're here. How to grow love, water with care, shine self-acceptance and open to air. Love has no bounds, wide as the sea. Feel love's immenseness, let your love flow free. Love is like a flower opening to the sun. Love is like a rainbow encircling everyone. Now I know of love. Listen and you'll hear. Ask, it will reveal. Know that it is clear. Yes, all I know is love is why we're here.